Thank you for letting me preach tonight. And I just thank you for giving me the honor. I'm so thankful for this class. For those of you who don't know me, maybe just on YouTube, my name is Andre, and this is my first 10-minute sermon. So I'm no preacher, not a professional one anyways. And today we're going to be talking about a text in Matthew 14, which I'll tell you guys to turn to later. Or you can turn there now if you want, but we're not going to read for a bit. The message I prepared for us is a message for us to be equipped, to really equip you guys. Throughout my life, I have been blessed with opportunities to minister and counsel to other saints in the church, to other sheep. And I'm so thankful that God allows this fool to speak wisdom into some people's lives. And I know that a lot of times we all might have opportunities where we can counsel and bless people with wisdom and words of knowledge that comes from the Lord. And so whether that's you who have people coming to you, or to be in a spot where someone's coming to you for advice or something that's just like earth-shattering, and you're that person to speak into the life, or you're someone yourself going through this hard trial, I hope that this scripture that we unpack will be something that you can use. You can equip yourself. I like to say it can be a tool for your Bible tool belt, right? I think that's the phrase. And so something that you can utilize for the church. I have a really big heart for the sheep, for the people of God, and I love to be around them. I'm always trying to put Bible studies together. I'm always trying to fellowship with a brother. And so I constantly find myself in a situation where I'm constantly speaking into people's lives. And again, I am a foolish man, but God has blessed me with wisdom from time to time, and I hope he does the same with you guys. And I'm pretty sure he has. I have been blessed by many of you already, so I know he has. Okay, so the text is Matthew 14, and it's going to be verses 22 through 33. Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 33. And again, I really want you guys to look at this text with the eyes of seeking to unpack it for someone else. And it could be for you, but I also just want to equip you guys to be helping the church mature, to grow into maturity. I like to begin just with like a story of how I needed this text and how this text even came to me to be used in this way. It's a common story, yet to be used in this way, I feel like there's a lot of truth to it. So I'm not really like exegetically breaking this down, but I am pulling a teaching from this, if you will. And so I had a friend who was rushing to the hospital with her uncle. And her uncle, I don't know if it was an organ or something, exploded in him. So blood was just coming out of him, like everywhere. And so she was freaking out, obviously. And so she's texting me freaking out, saying, please pray for my uncle. This is going on. We don't know. We're rushing to the ER. And so I was like, hey, I'll be praying. Please let me know how it goes. And so that would have been okay to text, except she was a bit more than a friend. And so it was more like I was there for the whole ride. And I already said all that I knew what to say in that first text. I'm praying for you. Let me know how it goes. I don't know what else to say now to encourage her or to be there for her. I was at a loss of words. I'm like, oh shoot, what do I say in this situation? And so, so she's texting me just like going down this spiral of like negative things. Like, man, if he passes away, my aunt's this, they have this many kids, she's not gonna be able to support herself, and like the family's poor, and where she's at with God. And so she's just going down a spiral, and I do not know how to encourage her. And so I pray. And this is, first of all, what I encourage you all to do. Even though I'm giving you something now as a tool to use for people, I encourage you first off and foremost to be praying. Praying, and that's exactly what got me to this text. So, I was praying about this, and I was like, Lord, what do I say? And I'm going to go back to that story, and I'll tell you what I told her, which was super helpful for her during that time. But also, again, like this might be for you. You might be going through a hard situation right now, and you might be the one who needs a word of encouragement. So for the other person, for the people that we sometimes minister to, it's what do I say? What do I say in this moment? God, give me the right words to encourage them in this hard time, this hard trial. But maybe you're going through it yourself. And so the question, instead of what do I say, is what do I do? How do I handle this, God? And so I hope this will encourage you if you're that second one, or prep you if you're the first person. Okay, so let's jump into the text. I've been talking too much. Okay, Matthew 14, verse 22 through 32, and I'm blind as a bat, so please bear with me. Immediately, he, Jesus, made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up onto the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone, but the boat by this time was long away from the land, beaten by the waves, for the wind was against them. Okay, so I really murdered that text. So let me say what's going on here. Basically, Jesus told his disciples to go across the sea to somewhere else while he dismissed the crowd so he can go up and pray. And then when he was done praying, the boat was pretty far off, and it says that there was a storm pretty much going on. The waves are beating on the boat, and the wind was crazy, okay? So verse 25. So in the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. Jesus is walking on the sea, okay? 26. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified, as we would all be, and said, "It's a ghost," and they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." And Peter answered him, Jesus, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." And he said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water. Peter is now walking on the water and came to Jesus. Crazy. Verse 30. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. And those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." Okay, so the story talks about, again, I already recapped in the other part where Jesus is separated from the disciples. Now he's walking to them on the water. And the disciples freak out, obviously. If you saw someone walking on the water, you would trip out too. And I'm pretty sure this is the first time they've ever seen anyone walk on water. And so what's reasonable? It can't be human. It must be a ghost. But it's Jesus. Now, Peter says something that's insane. He's like, "Lord, if it is you, call me. Call me right now." And so he calls him and he goes and walks in the water. That's insane for Peter to say. Peter's got some, what they say in the Jewish culture is chutzpah. Or as us Hispanics would say, some cojones, right? I'm not sure what that means. I hope it's not a bad word, but I know we all know what it kind of means. Right? Anyways, okay, so that's not the point though. The point is, Peter gets out of the boat and he begins walking on the water, right? So he's already doing the deed. He's able to walk on the water, trip, right? And then something happens and he begins to sink immediately. Do you guys know what happens?
Yes.
Verse 30. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." It's when he took his eyes off Jesus and looked at the circumstances, looked at the environment, that he freaked out. Naturally, he should be sinking. So naturally, that's what happened once he took his eyes off Jesus, right? And so my encouragement to at the time, my girlfriend was, "Babe, do you remember the study we did?" And I was like, "Where are your eyes at?" Because this study was fresh in our minds. And so when I said that, "Where are your eyes at?" she paused for a bit. And obviously I prayed for this, and God gave me this wisdom. It wasn't me. And then she paused, and then she finally responded, "Thank you so much. You don't know how encouraged I am right now." And she was like, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." And I felt like the man. I was like, "Yes!" Because I was like, I didn't know what to say. I was praying, and God gave me the wisdom. Praise you, God. That was awesome that worked out. And she knew exactly what I meant by that. She knew that I was talking about putting her eyes and her focus on Jesus and not on the circumstances. And she knew that God was doing something. Whether it was going to save his life or not, it's all for God. And maybe God wanted her to preach the gospel to someone. Maybe God just wanted her to show love to her uncle. Maybe whatever it was, she was going to look for it by looking at God and praying to keep her eyes on God. No matter how much time she wanted to take her eyes off God, she was going to continue to go back to that. And so same for you who are going through that hard season. Recently, I just came out of depression last year, and I didn't even know Christians could go through depression. I didn't believe in depression. I honestly didn't believe in it until I went through it. And as I was going through it, and it's a long story why I went through it, my whole foundation was shaking, and I didn't know why I was going through it. And it was about like 3 months in, and I have a friend who calls me to check up on me. And by the way, I just want to say, like, I tried praying, I tried everything. I tried reaching out to people, to friends, to my community, to my church. I was really alone in this, and it kind of sucked. And so I resorted to drugs. I started smoking weed, and it helped me, honestly, cope with just the way I was feeling, honestly. But suddenly a friend called me out of the blue, like I said, a couple months afterwards, and she's like, "How are you doing, Dre?" And I hated that question, because it always wanted me just to break down and cry. It forced me to, and I was like, "Oh, I'm not doing good, sis. I'm not okay." And she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." And she's like, "Quiet. What do you think God's trying to show you during the season?" And I was like, "What?" And right when she said that, like I was like a deer in the headlights. I was like so taken back. I'm like, what is God trying to show me? This whole time I was looking at my crummy circumstances and thinking like, woe is me, why God, and why is this happening? Instead of really thinking and genuinely asking why God, and genuinely seeking like, God, what are you doing? What are you trying to show me in this? And now, right when she said that, immediately I snapped out of my depression. It sounds stupid. It might sound like a miracle. I snapped out of it because I was like, God, you were teaching me something that whole time? And I was even thinking like, God, can I go through that again so I can get what you wanted me to get out of it? Because even though the marijuana made me feel okay and helped me to cope, I don't think the lesson was for me to cope. You know what I mean? And so I encourage you guys to read this text, make it your own, go through it, just study it, and there's got to be other ways too, and you always got to pray first. This isn't going to work for every situation, but it will work for most of them, I think. Tell people to keep their eyes on Jesus. What are they teaching right now, brother? What are they teaching? What is Jesus trying to show you right now, sister? What is he doing? Just keep your eyes on him, refocus it, not on the circumstances, not on the waves, not on the wind, not on the storm that you're in. Focus on him. What is he trying to show you?